If I could only advertise one type of business on Facebook and Instagram for the rest of my career, it would undoubtedly be local businesses, because the opportunity for local businesses with Facebook ads and Instagram ads is absolutely enormous. Now, my agency has run ad campaigns for more than 500 local businesses in just about every niche you can think of. And in this video, I'm going to distill down everything we've learned running those ad campaigns for those local businesses into the best possible tips, techniques, and strategies that you can implement to get better results right now. Okay, so the first point that I want to make when it comes to running Facebook ads for local businesses is that you need to make targeting adjustments. I see a lot of local business owners get this wrong when they run Facebook and Instagram ads. Is they watch a targeting tutorial from someone like me, and they implement advice that's actually designed for national or international advertisers, and you need to adjust things. So the big difference when it comes to targeting for local businesses is that you are usually advertising to a much smaller population, because you're only going to be advertising locally, and there's going to be far less people in that local area than there are in the whole country or in multiple countries in comparison to what some other advertisers may be able to target. That means you need to do things a bit differently. Now, this is particularly important if you're using original audience settings where your targeting criteria are hard constraints. So let's say you add in like an interest targeting option and you're only going to advertise to people who meet the interest targeting option criteria. If you are a local business, particularly if you're not a local business operating in an area that has a large population, like you could be a local business advertising to the whole of New York, or you could be a local business advertising just to your local town of 50,000 people. But let's say you're not advertising to the whole of New York and you are more local than that. If you then go and add in detailed targeting options like interests, specific demographics, behaviors, that's going to make your overall audience size just too small. If you are advertising in a town of just say 50,000 people or 100,000 people, basically the only targeting option that you can go with is just everyone in that area, just open targeting. Otherwise it's going to be too small, and that's going to really hurt your results. Even if you're using Advantage Plus Audience, which most advertisers probably are at this point, where your targeting inputs are suggestions. So let's say you add in interest targeting options, that's a suggestion where Meta still has leeway to go outside of the people that are within that interest and target other people. If you're advertising locally and the population size in that area isn't very large, I would still recommend that you go with much broader options. So large interest targeting options, if you are going to use lookalikes, you want it to be a 10% for sure. Or to be honest, often still go with open targeting. Otherwise your audience is going to be too small and your campaigns are going to suffer. And then the next point that's related to that, that's still to do with targeting, is around the location targeting. And that's that you want to set your location targeting criteria in the area where you actually operate. So only advertise to an area where you think it's realistic that customers will come to visit your location, if you're that type of local business, or where you are willing to travel to service a customer, if you are that type of local business. I see a lot of advertisers think, well, my audience size is going to be too small if I just do, say, my local town, therefore I'm going to do my local town plus 25 miles. And it's like, people aren't going to drive 25 miles to sign up to a gym. That's too far. They're going to find one more local to them, right? So depending on your business, you need to really have a think about what's realistic for most people that they are going to travel here, or we're willing to travel, depending on your business type. Don't artificially inflate the audience size just to keep Meta happy. And when you do enter in your location targeting, just to quickly clarify, that if you're using Advantage Plus Audience, that is done in the audience control section, and that is a hard boundary. So Meta will only advertise to people who live in or recently been in that location. So you don't need to worry about Meta all of a sudden putting ads in front of people on the other side of the country when it comes to location targeting. Every now and then there are mistakes and people slip through, but for the most part, that's not going to happen. Offers are really, really powerful. It's actually one of the things that I like most about advertising local businesses is that the leverage, the competitive advantage you get from having a great offer is really amplified. And that's because of what the competition are doing. So when you're advertising nationally, internationally, particularly in some of the more lucrative, more competitive markets, you are competing against brilliant marketers. Marketers that have read, for example, Alex Hormozi's $100 million offers book, and they are trying to implement these incredible offers to try and get lots of new customers. So it can be really hard to stand out. And in some industries, like the marketing space actually, the offers are getting more and more ridiculous and the guarantees are getting more and more impossible. And you know that people can't deliver, but those offers are out there in the world and it's making harder for other people to get leads and things like that. But locally, you don't have any of that. So if you're advertising a local business, you are only competing against other local advertisers, right? By definition. Now that means that there might only be a handful of other businesses that offer the same thing that you do that you have to compete against. How many of those are actually advertising on Facebook and Instagram? maybe none, maybe one or two. Let's say there are one or two. How good are their ads? Probably not very good at all. You can probably have the best ads there relatively easily. And you can probably go through something like Alex Hormozi's $100 Million Offers, which is a fantastic book, by the way, and craft an offer that is way better than your competitors and allows you to just hoover up that market share in your local town. I gave this example because I gave a talk in Brighton, in a city in the UK, and I gave the example of funeral homes being the local business. Low competition levels. So we're in Brighton right now. How many funeral service businesses are running Facebook ads in Brighton right now, do you think? Definitely less than 10, right? I've heard a few nuns. I won't be surprised. Probably less than 5. Let's just go on the safe side. Let's say there are a couple running ads. How good do you think their ads are? They're going to be rubbish. They really are. Like, maybe there's someone who's, maybe watched a few YouTube videos and know what they're doing. So how hard would it be to create the best funeral services Facebook ads in Brighton? Could you just win that little market? Honestly, you could watch a couple of YouTube videos on how to run Facebook ads and you would be able to then create the best Facebook ads for the funeral service industry in Brighton. What a good business that would be to advertise on Facebook and Instagram, because you've got really high average customer values, so that helps. Each customer is worth a lot of money. And you're also only competing against probably no businesses advertising on Facebook and Instagram, and if you are, you can create the best ads there and you can come up with a great offer. So I think if you are a local business, whether you're a service provider going to people or you have a location, people coming to you, then think about your offer. I mean, there are almost certainly discounts you can give, a guarantee of service that you can give. A lot of local businesses where you are a service provider, you can offer a guarantee of service that is much better than your competitors, and that makes a huge difference. Everyone's nervous about hiring a local builder, a local contracting company, because they're worried that they're not going to do a good job and they're going to overcharge. Like, your offer could be, we don't charge more than our quote. That's actually quite a good offer for like a local contractor, local builder, and that would be a terrible offer in other industries. They'd be like, well, of course you're not going to charge us more than you quoted. Like, you quoted it. But in that industry, because of what your competition do, that's a pretty good quote, because most of them do try and charge more. We promise to finish on time. If we don't, we give you 20% back. That's an amazing offer for a lot of local service-based businesses. If you're trying to get people to your location, you can offer special deals for certain people, certain days of the week, discounts. If you come in and become a member, we give you X special offer. There's all sorts of ways to come up with offers. But offers for local business are just so powerful because your competitors almost certainly aren't doing it. And even if they are, their offers are probably pretty rubbish, and you can probably come up with a better offer. And combine that with the fact that you might be one of the only ones advertising on the platform, but you know your customers are on Facebook and Instagram, because almost everyone is on one of those two platforms, at least one of those two platforms, then you get a massive competitive advantage. And the next point actually ties into that, which is the same thing in that you get massive competitive advantage by having a great offer when you advertise locally. It's the same with high quality ad creative. Most of your competitors, even if they are advertising on the platform, probably got pretty basic ad creative stuff they put together themselves using Canva, using an iPhone to take a photo of something. Like, just spending a little bit of money on getting a professional to create some nice ad creative for you, or doing it yourself if you have the skills, is going to really elevate you above the competition. Be like, that looks really cool, and that's going to make a big difference. Some areas for really nice competitive advantage, and that's one of the reasons why I love advertising local businesses. Now, one thing you do need to do with local businesses is you need to refresh ad creative more often. And that's because you're advertising to smaller audiences in comparison to national, international advertisers. You're going to get ad fatigue faster. If everyone within your target audience sees an ad from you on average once a week, which that's great, like not a problem with that at all. It just means that every month or so, that ad's starting to become a bit tired. People have seen it, they've either taken action based on it or they haven't. And you're going to want to refresh those and create new ad creative more often potentially than an advertiser that's advertising to a much larger audience could sort of more set and forget it if they're operating with relatively small budgets, because there's just so many more people to show that too. Now, there's another point I'm going to mention later on about tying in special offers and things like that would naturally allow you to create new creative on a regular basis. So that kind of takes care of that, but it's just something you need to be aware of if you've created new ads and they're working really well right now, that probably won't run for 6 months as is. It might do sometimes, but probably won't. So you are going to have to think about, we need new ads. We're going to have to do things to keep this fresh, new formats, new ad creative, new imagery, new videos. Otherwise you get ad fatigue, and when you get ad fatigue, results drop off. Now, I've got some other great tips when it comes to running Facebook ads for local businesses in a minute, things on scaling and all that sort of stuff. Before I get into that, I just want to quickly let you know about Facebook Ads Mastery. So Facebook Ads Mastery is my brand new course with community. It's all brand new course material. There's stuff in there specifically for local businesses. And it comes with a school community. With the school community, there's tons of interaction from the other Facebook advertisers, all looking to help each other out, which is fantastic. We've got over 450 members as of the recording of this video, and that's increasing all the time, which is great. Also, me and my team are in there like all the time, all day, every day, answering questions, interacting. So the community angle is really strong. We do live calls and live trainings in Facebook Ads Mastery. So you get access to those. You can obviously ask specific questions and all that sort of stuff. So if you're interested, there is a link in the description. You can click through and look to go ahead and join, find out more information. But I think if you're looking to level up your Facebook and Instagram ad game, get better results, I think you find it really, really valuable. So one of the issues that local businesses often run into with their Facebook and Instagram ads is when they look to scale, that's clearly very difficult. Particularly if you're only advertising in an area with a relatively small population, there's only so much you can spend on your ads before you're just putting them in front of everyone, and spending any more is a waste of money, right? So what I've seen local businesses do is they try and change their business model to allow them to scale, but that then changes what worked for them initially. So let's take the example of like a garden center, okay? So garden centers are local. For the most part. You can obviously have national chains and things like that, but you know, a single individual location is going to be local. Let's say your ads are working really well, you're getting lots of people in, you've got great offers, things are going well, and you think, we want to scale. I know what we'll do. We will sell our products that we sell in store, we'll sell them online, and we will try and advertise and scale that way. That's a change of business model. And that's really difficult because as soon as you start doing that, you are then competing against other advertisers that are selling plants and flowers and compost and patio slabs and all the various things that go into a garden that specialize in selling those online. They do it at bulk and they're national advertisers and they really know what they're doing and they have great offers, and it's really, really difficult. What I think a much better approach for a business like that usually is, if they want to scale, is to open other locations and then advertise those locally. Because then you are keeping the same structure, the same setup, and the same competition dynamics, where if you're advertising to get people into your local garden center, you're only competing against other garden centers within that local area that they could go to instead. So when you open a new location, that same thing is going to be true for the new location. You are only competing against other garden centers that are advertising to get people in store around that garden center. Obviously, it's going to be a different location from your first. So that is a very different dynamic. And if you've got it succeeding in one place first, and you want to scale, usually that's the only reason why you would scale, is because it's working one place. You want to replicate that as closely as possible in another place, as opposed to trying to sell online. Local businesses that offer a service often do the same thing. So you might have someone that is, say, a physiotherapist, okay? And they've done really well advertising their services and they get people to come in and see them, but they've kind of tapped out the local market and they've got a physiotherapy practice. They might think, right, we're going to start offering online sessions. That's how we're going to change our business model and we're going to expand. And again, that's really difficult because then you're competing against all the physiotherapy companies that could offer online sessions, which is every physiotherapy company in the world. And that's really difficult to do. And there are going to be some that specialize in that and undercut you on price and all that sort of thing. Much better to go up and open a new physical physiotherapy practice in another location and then keep all the dynamics the exact same thing. And you can have the same things even if you don't have a location, right? You could, if you're a plumber, you could have like a branch that operates in one location and then open, hire people in another location and get, some guys to operate in that locality and just keep the dynamics the same, is something that I would strongly recommend you look to do first before you try and change business model. And you can absolutely have, I think a lot of people think that you can't have a massively successful local business that operates at massive scale. That is not true at all. I mean, think of a lot of the franchise businesses that you know of. Those are businesses that operate locally to them, like Subway. People either buy directly from the Subway or they might use a Deliveroo or like some food delivery service, but it's all really local around that location. And then how do they grow? They build out more locations in lots of different places. Loads of businesses like that. I think that's underappreciated as a scaling method, and it can work really, really well with Facebook and Instagram ads. So this next point sounds kind of obvious, but I see a lot of local businesses that are running Facebook ads not do this. And that's that in your ads, you should make it very, very clear that you are local. Don't assume that people will know that immediately from seeing it. I've just reviewed a lot of ads and I'm like, you haven't actually got the name of your town or your location in here, and you want people to come in, even if you're offering a service where you go to people, absolutely include the name of the place that you operate in. Because if you're scrolling through, let's say you're a potential customer of yours, and you're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, the ad that has the name of the place you live in is definitely going to grab your attention more than the equivalent that doesn't. And we're all seeing ads and they seem somewhat generic, and it's like, maybe we're interested, maybe we're not, and we're going on. And then something's like, oh, that's literally like the village, that's the town that I live in. That's gonna grab your attention. And then obviously you're much more likely to get that person's, if they get their attention, you're much more likely to get them to interact with the ad and go through and convert and become a lead, or take the next action, take the next step that you want them to take. So that's just a little bit of a no-brainer, but absolutely include it in there. For a lot of businesses to have physical locations, include your address. People may have heard of you if they see it. Oh yeah, I've heard someone said something about this business. A friend of mine recommended it, but where actually is it? Oh, okay. Oh, it's just around the back of da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, that's just really useful information. Remember, you're advertising to real people, and if they know where you are, they know it's relevant to them, they're more likely to take the next step effectively. When you advertise locally, testimonials and reviews carry extra weight. So if you use those in your advertising, and I strongly recommend that you do, because they are so powerful, make sure it's very clear that the person leaving the testimonial or the review is local to the other people that you're advertising to. And there's a technique that the news has used for a long, long time, where they have all these techniques to make something more relevant and make people more interested in a news story. And one of the core components of that is local. And the idea is that if there was some sort of event happened on the other side of the world, it's way less interesting, way less relevant than it happened on your street. You're way more likely to be interested in it happened on your street. So that's like an extreme example, but you can think about if I know that there's a testimonial for a garden centre that's fantastic, someone left a review, it's brilliant, you should go in. If that person lives in my local town, that's going to carry more weight than if they've live in a completely different place. Because when someone lives in your town to you and you see that they've left a review or testimonial, you assume that it's more likely to work for you as well. You're more likely to enjoy it as well because someone who is more similar to you had a good experience with it, as opposed to someone else from another part of the world where you're like, well, they might not be into the same things as me, they might not have the same priorities, they might not have the same standards, or someone in your local town, you're more likely to think that they have those commonalities. Think about when you're on holiday, you're on vacation, and you meet someone from your local area, right? And you almost feel like there's like this connection, even though you're in a different place, there's like this connection to that person because they're from the same place you are, even though there's obviously loads of people that live in the same place you are, and you'd never, if you bumped into them, you'd never be like, oh, how funny that we live in the same place, live in the same city, let's chat or whatever. You wouldn't do that, but when you're away in somewhere else, you have that connection. It's kind of a funny thing, and you're drawing on that same thing when you're using testimonials and reviews. If they are from other local people, make that very, very clear in the ad. You can like literally put the name underneath the testimonial review and then like comma their location, right? And that's gonna show that and carry more punch and help people get over that and help people convert. So here's a technique that I love when it comes to advertising local businesses, and that's to tie in special offers with local events. So I'll give you an example, right? So I live in a town called Cheltenham, as I just mentioned. Now there is an event called the Cheltenham Races here every year. It's a big horse racing thing. It's one of the most famous ones in the country. Local businesses do, and it's absolutely a good idea to run special offers and promotions around the time of the Cheltenham Races, using that language and that messaging within their ads and within their copy and ad creative. Even if obviously they have nothing to do with horse racing or anything along those lines, it's just something that's fun that's going on locally. I think it kind of taps into the fact that you have a local presence and that you're connected to the community and that you're aware of what's going on and what people are doing. And again, if people within this town are looking at ads and they see Cheltenham Races in there, that's more likely to grab their attention than like a generic ad from a national or even international advertiser that's just advertising a regular product or whatever. That's going to grab their attention more and tie in and make people more keen to take part. So I think it helps make it very clear that you're a local business, and it helps grab people's attention, and then it helps give that connection to the local community, which will help convert into sales, new customers, even if what you're offering is not related to anything to do, in this case, with horse racing. And local areas have all sorts of different events, and you can create new ads, and that's a good way, as I mentioned earlier, this is the point that I wanted to come to, around having to refresh ad creative quite often when it comes to local advertising, because your audience size is small and you run into ad fatigue issues. Well, if you are repeatedly tying things into local events, even if they're really small. And like in Cheltenham, there's a Cheltenham Races, but every summer there's a food festival. Every spring there's a jazz festival. Like there's going to be various things that happen in your locality. Tie these things in. We've got a special offer, to celebrate the food festival. We've got a special offer on our whatever. Come in and check it out, or people can sign up to a new gym membership free. It doesn't need to be related. It just the fact that you are local and you're advertising to local residents and it is a local event, that's connected enough for it to make sense. So a good way to connect with the community and get that added trust factor. That's one of the things that local really helps with, is your prospects are more likely to trust you if they know you operate in the same place that they live, and also naturally helps with creating new ad creative and preventing ad fatigue, because you're only going to run that promotion for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, around that local event. Now, one of the absolute best things about advertising local businesses with Facebook and Instagram ads is that you can expect your results to improve over time. And that's because positive customer interactions compound, and they compound more with local businesses than they do with non-local businesses. So let me give you a couple examples, right? So let's say you're a local restaurant. Now, if you advertise and you get people to come in, that might be relatively expensive initially. It might be quite difficult to get those first few people in. But if they do come in and they love the food and think the service is fantastic, they are far more likely to tell other people about it. If you think of the recommendations you hear from friends, family, etc., and you think of the recommendations that you give, yes, you do that with national, international businesses, but you're far more likely to do it with local businesses. So let's say someone comes into your restaurant, you've advertised to get them in, they had a great experience, they tell people about it. Well, those people might directly just come in, which is fantastic. That's like exactly what you want. But also, if your ad is put in front of someone that has heard about your restaurant from a friend of theirs, that ad is more likely to be successful, because they're not just going, oh, what's this? Oh, a new restaurant in town, interesting. They're going, oh yeah, this restaurant, yeah. My friend was telling me about this the other day. They said that the such and such was fantastic. Look, they've got a special deal on right now where kids eat free or whatever it happens to be. Let's go ahead and eat there. And they're far more likely to convert. So that really helps, and that builds over time. So the longer you do that, the more good customer interactions you have, the more likely they are to recommend it to other people, the more effective your advertising will be. And honestly, you can often get to the point where you don't need to advertise at all, because you've used the ads to get that initial customer base. They come back because they love it. They tell other people all about it, who then come in, and you've got a customer base and happy days. Things are working really well. And the same would happen for other types of local businesses. Like if you're a local plumber, for example, and you advertise to get your first few customers, you're thinking, oh, these are really quite expensive. We didn't make tons of money on that one. Should I keep running the campaign? Well, it's going to get better over time as long as you do a good job. Because yeah, you might have paid, let's say you've paid a reasonable amount of money to get that first plumbing client, and say you've broken even, you haven't actually made any profit on it. But if they go and recommend a couple of people, brilliant. That's where, and then they recommend a couple of people, and then you go on and on and on. So provided the service that you deliver is good, you can actually afford to pay quite a lot to acquire those initial customers locally, because there's a much greater chance that you will get those referrals and recommendations, and that your initial marketing investment will be amplified by that word of mouth effect. So something there's absolutely a huge competitive advantage for local businesses, that you don't get that to the same extent with other types of businesses, where you can all think of things, that products that say that you buy online, that you're say a hobby into, like that's one of the things that you're into and you purchase products in there. You're only going to recommend that to friends who are also into the same thing. Whereas if it's like a local restaurant, or there's a new gym down the road that you've been to, or whatever, you are far more likely to give a recommendation to people. Everyone at some point needs a plumber, right? You are far more likely to recommend that to anyone that you know that needs a plumber. So yeah, it's something to really consider when you first start running those campaigns. If it looks expensive initially, don't immediately discount it and give up. Think that, okay, we're acquiring customers relatively expensively, and by the way, it doesn't have to be expensive. You might acquire customers relatively cheaply. I'm just saying that if you do acquire customers relatively expensively, that might still really work out for you long run, because you get them coming back, you get work from them again, and the referral word of mouth is really, really powerful. Now, something I haven't discussed in this video, which is obviously something really important for local businesses to get right with their Facebook ads, is campaign structure. And that's because I've created a brand new tutorial showing my new and updated recommended campaign structure. With all the changes that happened to meta ads over the past year or so, we've now got a new way of doing things, a better way of doing things when it comes to campaign structure. And in this video here, you can see all the details. I've created the full tutorial so you can walk through my exact campaign structure. It's only a short video, and it's well worth a quick watch.